what it is that I do today was something that I was going to be doing, and that's essentially helping people recognize themselves, helping people identify the difference, voices in their heads, from their egoic voice, their soul's voice, and just really having them in a space of um, them learning how to heal themselves, them learning how to recalibrate their own life's journey, um, in the way that honors their soul's purpose, right? So I like to consider myself a spiritual mentor. Channeled messages is something I've always done since I was a child, as mentioned. I didn't always do it with cards, right? It For me, it started around the age of 7, although I have cousins that say that it started way before that. And I can see that now. I can see that now, because there was this one phrase that I said when I was sleep talking one day, and I said, "Sun kiss the water." And that phrase, "sun kissed the water," while I was talking in my sleep, has impacted me majorly throughout my life, to the point where it still creates quantum leaps. It still creates major shifts in my life. Um, and so it's little things that sometimes we may not think is essential to us, that when we recall, and so I help people do like recalls as well. When we recall, we can realize that it's our soul guiding us, our soul talking to us. And when I was 7, for me, it started with a dream. And this dream was very interesting. I remember it as if it happened yesterday or last night or just a few moments ago, right? The details were, at that time, I'm from the Bronx, New York. Hola. The details were, at that time I was living in Yonkers. And but in the dream, I was in my old apartment in the Bronx. I was a child, and we were leaving. Let me backtrack. We were leaving the apartment, me and another adult, right? Which at the time, I wasn't sure if it was my brother or someone else, because they had the appearance like my brother, but not quite. And now I know who it is. It was a spirit guide of mine. We're leaving the house in Yonkers, and we're going to the store around the corner. But the store around the corner, because if you know New York, they have like a bodega, corner store in every corner. And so, literally, we would get out the building and just have to walk. But instead of doing that, we walked up the hill into the car, and we started driving. And we're driving, and I remember in the dream not really knowing where I was going, but I knew we were going to the store. And so we drove, and we get to this store. I see this lady who rang us out. I remember, like, it felt like I was in Florida, but the store was in Puerto Rico. And then when we left the store, we went back, but instead of going back to Yonkers, we went back to the Bronx. And I go up the stairs, and I see my grandmother appearing as my mom, because I'm like, "Where's my mom?" I'm looking for my mom. At that point in the dream, I'm like lucid. And so I'm looking for my mom in the dream, and this woman comes out, and she's pretending, to be my mom. She's wearing my mom's wedding dress. And I remember just seeing her coming out with my mom's wedding dress and looking at everyone. We were in the hallway, and everyone in the hallway, it was almost as if, like, my mom used to throw a lot of parties, and I knew it wasn't a party because everybody was quiet. Everybody was like, nobody was really happy. It didn't look like a celebration, but there was the same people of a party, right? Essentially. and she's talking to me, and I'm like, "You're not my mother." Um, Look and here.
She'll be back in a minute. You froze, sweetie. Yeah.
I'm like, "You're not my mother." And she's like, "Yes, I am, baby." And my mom doesn't, my grandma calls me that now, whatever. But anyway, um, I'm like, "No, I'm gonna go look for my mom." So long story short, I go in the house, I go to my parents' room. They had like the old Victorian double doors for their bedroom. So I remember opening the doors, and right across is their window. So the window's open, and on the fire escape, I see this crow. And I just walk straight to the window, and the crow is like eye gazing with me. And as it eye gaze with me, it kind of like lets me know that it's gonna go. And so it flies up into the sun. But as it's flying up into the sun, it turns from a crow to a dove.
Mm.
And then I wake up and I start crying, and I'm like, I don't know why, but I felt like I knew that someone was going to transition, somebody was going to die.
Oh.
And even though there wasn't a funeral in the dream or anything like that, I knew, and I knew that the whole dream wasn't, I wasn't sure. I just started crying and crying and crying. My mom comes to the room and she's like, "What's going on?" And I said, "I had a bad dream." And she was just assuring me that it was a bad dream. And my aunt's husband, which is my uncle, rest in peace, he actually ended up transitioning from an accident. And so that night when we came back from the hospital, before his funeral and everything, I seen him. I seen him in my room, and I started seeing all different types of spirits. And from that moment. So for me, the 7 years old was a major activation for me when it came down to seeing the spirits. And um, I kind of like knew, I was like, that wasn't New York. And the lady in the store, I met her years later, actually, because we ended up driving down to Florida. And we were moving to Florida. And so the roads that I was passing in my dream was the roads that we were driving down to Florida. And the store, it was a Puerto Rican store. And so they had all Puerto Rican candies. And I kid you not, I almost like froze and like bugged out when I seen the woman who was checking me out, was the woman like checking me out in the store, was the woman in my dream when I was 7 years old. And
Wow.
so I was like, wow, like our dreams really do give us messages. And I know I'm not bugging. Like I know sometimes I'm super sensitive, but I would say things to people since I was a child. I would say random things to them that seemingly random to them, that was a message that was given to me to give to them. And as I got older, there was times that I was resisting that, my gifts, because society was saying that this stuff makes you crazy. And I have been in and out of psych. I was Baker active, and so many things transpired in my life. And even when I was institutionalized, I realized, being in those places, that there was a lot of other people who, due to circumstances, right, that was altering um, their natural energetic signatures, their natural abilities and whatnot. um, People wouldn't believe them. they wouldn't be able to fully like connect with themselves. And I realized when I was in those spaces, I would be able to see like certain energies that was connected to them, or certain things that was gonna like foresee certain things for them. And I realize now that I had to go into those places to kind of help those people while I was helping myself at the same time, right? Because I was dealing with suicidal ideations, I was dealing with depression, like I was dealing with anxiety, and all those things would come in and out of my life because I couldn't be myself fully. And I would try to find, I would take the medication, not take the medication, trying to find different ways to help myself. And essentially, what ended up happening was I just kept allowing myself to stay true to me and true to my calling, my soul's calling. And like I knew that that type of programming and that type of reality wasn't the reality that I was going to keep myself in. And so I would speak affirmations into my life to see, what it would do. I didn't even know that was like a real thing. A lot of the stuff that I did up until now was very intuitive. And it allowed for me to learn so many levels on so many dimensions, so many lessons, I'm sorry, so many lessons on so many dimensions that I have been able to help guide others through the circumstances that they are in also. And so that's my biggest thing. That's what I do. I live my life. I pay attention to what my intuition is telling me. I take, like, today was more of a rest day because my spirit was just like, rest, but allow yourself to be disciplined and show up for the things that you said you was going to show up for, and so that's why I was like, okay, I'm going to show up, but my internal like clock and everything is just it's rotating in a certain frequency that's different from active, active, active. And I think it's important for people to get reacquainted with their own body, with their own energy, with the logistics of the language that their essence, I want to say essence as a totality, that is talking to them and what it's saying. So I guide people. I am a certified Reiki master as well, since I think 2016 now, if I'm not mistaken. I did take a break from doing Reiki for a bit. Before that, I've also done my yoga certification for 200 hours. But personally, I say like yoga is every day. It's a lifestyle. It's not a paper. And you, quite frankly, you don't even need the paper as of right now by law and stuff. I'm not big on labels. So I just kind of shared that background story for anyone that, may feel like they're not sure where to go back into. I would say go back to like, a childhood memory that really made a major imprint on your mind. And what was the lesson that it had to share with you? Because that lesson has stood with you for so long. This could be traumatic in a good way or in a bad way, but nonetheless, being able to identify what is the lesson so that you can know more or less if you just need to rewrite that story and let it go and create that like paradigm shift, right? Which is like, for me, paradigm shifts are very damn near close to quantum leaping, they're just slightly different, but essentially almost the same for me. Yeah.
So, that's a perfect segue. For us, tell us how you predict slightly different between a paradigm shift and a.
So for me, a paradigm shift is when it's these small little changes that we create, like subtle changes that we create in our life that start creating a ripple effect to shape the timeline that we're in, right? For example, we say from the Piscean age to the Aquarian age. Well, we know that throughout that time we've changed many different times. You know, we went from baby to toddler to teenager to adolescent to adult. You know, so many phases in our life, and each of those phases we did different things to create different timelines, but they may not have necessarily been like a full quantum leaping, unless and this is where they're different. In the case where they're not necessarily doing a quantum leaping, you know, these are people where their lives not so much is different, but a lot has changed in their life. Quantum leaping is, I'm going to give an example. I did a quantum leap right now, before, and I wasn't 100% sure. Sorry, I was cut off the net for some reason. Oh, well, welcome back. I wanted to create a massive shift, and that shift, the way that I did it, I went into a deep meditation within myself, and both quantum leaping and paradigm shifts are going to energetically shift the engineering of your cells anyway, right? Because as above, so below, as within, so without. So they're both going to do it. But again, these quantum shifts, it can create even like your face to change, like certain structures in your body to change. So you will physically look slightly different, right? There was people who their names were exactly the same as other characters that I had in my other reality, that these people had hurt me. And in this reality, these people, I kid you not, if I can take their pictures, they're not even related to each other. Okay. I'm going to give an example. There was a girl, I don't want to share her name because she might watch this, but I'm going to just say Ice. Okay. So I had dated, I'm going to say Ice and Fire, right? So, Fire was an ex, and Fire was fiery, and we had a very passionate relationship for many years. And then towards the ending of that relationship, I did some spell work that I didn't realize what I was doing. I knew what I was doing, but I didn't know to how big of a degree it was going to be. Meaning I had an object and of fire. It was a necklace, and I just remember being extremely emotional about how our relationship was going. And I said to myself, I came, I got a candle, I dressed it up, and I was like, I need to give her, like, I'm big on free will. And so even though I did this spell, it created a major shift in my life that rippled in a way that I didn't know it was going to cause this leap. And so I gave her two paths. One path was to choose me and stay with me, and we'll fix things and get things going, whatever. The second path was that Fire moves on, and Fire finds, their partner, they get married, they start a family. But in order for fire to do that, because what me and fire had was extremely, um, not just passionate, but it had been for lifetimes. It was like a soulmate situation for lifetimes. And so I knew it was going to be difficult for us to actually sever those cords, because while I was in a relationship with that with fire, I had tried cord cutting a few times anyway. Not cord cutting in a way because I wanted our relationship to end, but cord cutting so that I can feel my own energy, so I can be in my own thing. And that's actually a common thing for, like, people that are mediums, that they don't want their work to affect their partners. And so they'll do cord cuttings just to kind of be in their own energy and not affect others, right? Or carry on others. And so each time, it was just really intense. Sorry, I had gotten a call. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can. Or at
Okay.
least.
Okay. And so she finds a family, moves on, and in order for her to really do this, she's gonna have to hate me. And I was emotional when I did it. I said, she's gonna have to hate me. She's gonna have to, like, not like me. And I'm gonna have to forget who she is. So she chose the path of moving on to someone else and getting married. And so as years went on, right, I seen that, right? So we still stood in contact for like 3 months after that spell. But I noticed as those 3 months progressed, like, she would try to be my friend, and it was explosive. It was getting like destructive, right? And so I was like, okay, this is getting toxic. I didn't quite want to, like, let her go, but I also seen that even though she was physically trying to choose me, because she also didn't really, like, want to let go, she didn't really want to stay and continue in this relationship, and so it was getting destructive. And so she goes her way, I go my way. And in doing so, um, she just started saying spreading rumors about me, saying the worst things. Like, I was raped and she had knew about it, and she had told people that I wanted it. She had told people, like, she spread so much stuff that was really hurtful to me. And I remember just being so hurt that I was just like, oh, I just want to forget her. Forgetting that I had did the spell, like, months ago and stuff like that, right? And I kid you not, I end up going to work one day. Well, I went to school, and this kid in the class comes, and he's wearing the cologne of the guy who raped me, or at least it smelled the same. It, like, triggered me to, like, have this attack, right? A panic attack for a moment. I leave school, they pick me up, they take me to work. I go to work early, and all of a sudden this guy comes in. And I used to work in Metro selling cell phones. And so he comes in trying to, get his phone taken care of, and I didn't know how to work the phone. I didn't know. It was like I completely stepped out of myself.
Mm.
And I just remember looking at the phone, bugging and crying. And before I started crying, I was just like bugging. I called my coworker next to me to, like, and she thought it was a joke. Like, I didn't know how to turn on the phone. I didn't know how to do a text. I didn't know how to do a phone call. Like, she thought I was joking, until she started seeing, like, my hands was shaking and my eyes got watery. And she was like, oh, let's go to the back room, so she told the store manager to deal with that client. And she's talking to me, and I just, like, I blanked out.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't blank out everywhere. I was still conscious of me being in the store. but I couldn't remember how to like write my name in a way, how to use the phone. So they had to call, like, they called my dad to see if he could come get me. I didn't fully tell him like what happened. I just was like, having an off day, whatever. I couldn't even go back to work. Not only was I forgetting things with myself because she played such a major role, right? Fire has had so much power in a lot of my memories that I lost those memories. I didn't see no photos of her on my phone, on my iPad, on my emails, my family. We have been together for 5.5 years. My family didn't have and I remember my dad had photos one time, and I was asking him, I was like, do you still have, like, I was trying to remember their face. And it wasn't until I did a quantum leap meditation a few years ago that things started revealing itself, right? It started to make sense to me. At the time, I didn't know. At the time, it was just a ripple effect of that spell. And so, I stopped working. Just a bunch of things happened. And so moving forward, I want to say back in, what was that? What year? We 23. So about 2019. Yes. 2019, I did a quantum meditation, a quantum leap meditation on myself, almost like a form of hypnosis. And in this, I wanted to know a reality in which certain people, including her, because I wanted to remember her face, I wanted to regain access to some of my memories back. Okay. And so in order for me to regain access to these memories, I had to do a quantum leap within my own psyche. I had to go into spaces that I hadn't gone to access this. However, I didn't want to just do a past life regression on myself. I wanted to continue to live my life forward, right?
Okay.
So more like an integrative kind of experience space. So then I had this like experience in the astral realm, and I meet this woman who, her name was the same name as Fire, and she looked almost identical as Fire, but her eyes were different. And so I remember waking up from this experience, and I was like, this was after that meditation. So I'm like, was that Fire? And I'm like, but why were her eyes different? Like I never seen Fire's eyes like that. So I go to the store, this crystal shop, and I go to the crystal shop and I see Ice there, who looks just like Fire, but her eyes are different. And I was just like, am I bugging? Like, is that, I need to see pictures. Is that how she looked? Because it was like my soul recognized her essence, right? And so, but I was also like, is that Fire? Is it not? Like, I remember her. I started getting glimpses of memories with me and Fire, right? And things were, it was just so different. Like my day to day after that, it wasn't the same. It was like, so when I tell you it was different from my neighbors weren't my neighbors. Like I had different neighbors. I had, like just so much, it shifted and it changed. And there was people that came into my life that was carrying the same names as other people that I was trying to bring their characters back into my reality, but in a different manner, in a way that supports me moving forward.
Okay.
And so Ice is in the store. We don't exchange information, but we're like looking at each other like we know each other from somewhere. And I'm just like, but I didn't share with her. Every time we would see each other, like I started going to that store more because I was trying to figure things out. And we would talk here and there, but we didn't, nothing major till after a year after that. When I get their phone number, I don't want to share their whole thing, but it has 369 and then it has synchronistic numbers, like straight through.
Okay.
And I was like, 369, the same number, just synchronistic, the last four. And I was like, and her name was the same name as Fire. And
Okay.
I'm like, and they're the same age, and they're the same zodiac sign.
Okay.
And they have the same like facial features and everything. And so I'm like, okay, I'm bugging out. What is this like? And I didn't put two and two together yet about the quantum leaping, the quantum meditation that I did until time progressed and I started getting the memories. Fire's pictures started coming out of nowhere. Like, I mean, it was like in Facebook memories when I have been looking for these pictures for over 4 years just to kind of like, it wasn't to stalk them or anything. It was because I had lost so much of my memory that I wanted to regain access to my memory. I didn't realize, and when I met Ice, they were experiencing things that Fire had said onto me, like the bad things that Fire was wishing on me, Ice was experiencing.
Oh.
And so I was like, wow, is this like, I don't wish bad on Fire or Ice. Like, is this happening and because of the quantum leap? And is this a way of my spirit showing me a reality where they're reaping the karmas of what they, in that reality, what they did? Because it wasn't just Ice. It was three people actually who carried names and their, however, these three peoples, it was as if in this reality they were experiencing the karmas of their old behavior from that reality, but they were all treating me good and they were all supportive to me moving forward in my journey. But not only that, it was as if we were helping each other, because they were very powerful or are very powerful people. They practice, they're on their journey and stuff like that too. And so that to me was the how I can see the quantum, where it was the same names, it was the same characters, just slightly different. It was different. Whereas in the paradigm shift, for me, the paradigm shift was when I started losing my memory to begin with, due to the spell, due to the affirmations I was doing. I started creating a reality shift in my life, but it wasn't until I did the quantum shift that it create that massive timeline jump. It was like jumping into a parallel reality is what I would say, in the same time, and what would be perceived as that same timeline.
Okay.
So I'm still on my journey. I'm on this timeline of my journey and I'm traveling through these different dimensions. And as I do this, there's these paradigm shifts that occur, right? From my life getting better, the way that my emotional intelligence, right? When you start recognizing how to identify your emotions, that can create a paradigm shift. You start behaving differently. You start experiencing life differently. but it's not necessarily a full, I mean, it can, like I said, it's all going to affect the cells in the body, and we're multidimensional beings, but that's how I differentiated the difference, where it's like, you know, from literally from like one moment to another moment, like there's different neighbors, and it, like I was really bugging out, and I was like, yo, is this like, am I experiencing like Mandela effect and all these types of things that, you know, for me, that's more of a quantum thing than that is a paradigm um shift, although there are very similar. But I'm open to hearing yours because I don't have all the answers.
Well, I don't have all the answers. That's why you see me just listening so passionately, because I will tell you the truth that I come from. Okay, my journey has been uh, the hold on a second. My journey has been through a lot of old dogmas of being raised in a Baptist background, you know, moving through Christianity with trying to break the rose colored glass filter that I was seeing life through. And for me, through my childhood and most of my very young adulthood, I'd say till about almost the end of my 20s, I had my mother there who kind of allowed me to keep uh, stripping the filter off those glasses, right? And until I got to a point where you get to that age of life where you want to do the opposite of what I tell you to do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you start going with, but then you find out that there are a lot of just old stories and old things that people, I found that people, my mother, the stories had been filtered down into me, right? So everything I'm learning now from everything that, and I'll tell you, from every guest that will ever come on my podcast, I'm learning new and creative things that have names to them that I didn't know I was doing that had a name. I
That you
didn't
didn't
know.
know what? It broke up for a moment.
Oh, that I didn't know I was doing that actually had maybe a spiritual name to it. Like I know for a fact that I believed. I didn't know that what it was called. I know for a fact I've done a lot of paradigm shifts based on how you and another person, and now you explaining a lot more, and actually, hey, been there, I've done, I felt this, and this is what it felt like. Then, oh, you know, I can understand that. Up until like really recently, in the last 2 days, it was evening time, 2 days, and I'm looking out my window. Hi, Grace. Um, I was looking out my window, and I was looking down at the parking place where my car was, and it did not look like my car. Now, honey, I know it's dark. My park does not have a light over, but it was not my car, right? And I opened my window again, and I looked. I said, "Who's in my parking space? Who's in my parking space?" Somebody said, "Please." And my thing was, I did not hear the door open or close as if my daughter had left, because normally she leaves, she takes the car. You know, if she runs it, whatnot. I didn't hear that, right? So I'm looking, and I go downstairs, and by the time I get to the bottom of the stairs, my daughter sitting in the living room watching me. I go and look out, and my there. You know, it's my car. I know it's my car. And my daughter says, "Is there a problem?" I said, "No." And then I go back up to the stairs and look out my bedroom window, and somebody else is parked in my parking spot. And I literally had to sit down on my bed and go, where am I in two places at the same time? because I'm going to tell you, that was really the first time that I've ever taken notice of it. It's happened to me before, especially when I was a kid. I'd say like between 10, maybe 15. I would always see myself in different places, but in the same place.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
I'm hearing now, oh, okay. I wasn't just, I didn't mention anybody else because, of course, they're going to throw you in the psych ward or probably medicine ward, if my mom would have let anybody do that. But, you know, um, I would always ask my mom, my mom's answer, you're always where you're at when you need to be where you're at. Don't worry about it. So for me, so I'm learning all these new things, but yeah, 2 days ago, that's the first time that I actually really realized that I was in two places at the same time. And the thing was that it was okay that I was open to that for a reason. My soul allowed me to see it for a reason, and I think it is to be comfortable with that, you know, that moment, because all I went is, oh, interesting. I went back and I looked out the window. Who knows? Maybe I was in another time and that was my car, just a different car, or So, I'm learning about these things. These things, the quantum leaps and I get the paradigm shift. I get that we can shift our story so magnanimous in our now, you know, as we're along in our now. I get that part, but the quantum leap was wow.
When you saw the car, I mean, obviously, when you saw the car, you is like kind of flabbergastic as like, where's my car? This, that, and the third. The next day, was it your car or was it a different person's car?
The next morning, my car. The next morning when
So that, yeah, that can be between both, like jumping the timelines, right? Creating that paradigm shift in a sense. Because I've been through that too, where I was literally walking. I kid you not, I was walking my dog. I think I shared this story with you before, but I was walking my dog, um, and I passed by this house, and they have a gnome in front of the house. And I kid you not, I think the gnome, now I'm trying to remember, but I know it changed color, where it was from red to blue or from blue to red. And I was just like, I remember being on the phone and we were having this, like, deep conversation. And as we're talking, like, I'm like noticing the energy, the air just felt different. And I was like, the air feels different. Like, and there was a bunch of cats that came out of nowhere. And so I'm like looking at the cats. And then I look and I was like, that's weird. I was like, I know that gnome to be a different color,
mm-hmm,
you know? And so, other things started happening. And it's like, that's when I feel like when we are experiencing these paradigm shifts is when we are able to see the glitches in the matrix,
right,
right? Like these glitches, because it's happening to shift our reality into the paradigm in which resonates most to our psyche, to our frequency, our energetic frequency. And that's where it's like, seeing those, like, for example, I feel like, whenever you go into a deep state of meditation, and you have an experience that is like very profound, that you automatically created like a paradigm shift within yourself. You may not realize it to the extremity in that moment, but it will begin to show itself as time progresses.
okay,
And that's where we can start seeing these paradigm shifts. Is like, maybe back in the days you had different friends than you have now. You
right,
may have those friends that they've been with you through all your changes, But even besides them, there have been different acquaintances that you dealt with and different friends. And every time you have those experiences, you are having you're experiencing a different paradigm of your being.
Right.
It's,
Right.
it's how I look at it.
Right.
I had to walk out within 2 minutes because I hurt my head so profoundly. It hasn't stopped since. Wait. Um,
Talking about
I had,
she
do
went to,
you think
yeah.
triggers something inside of me I'm working through? It's very possible. So hold on.
I think she went to a grocery store and she smelled something that smelled like, it smelled like cat urine. And ever since that uh, smelled that smell, she's had a headache. It's working through her. Um,
hmm Absolutely. Smell is one of the biggest triggers to memories for our memories. It's a big thing that it's connected with the root chakra. So you can feel like if it's a disturbing smell, you can feel unsettled. You can feel ungrounded. You can feel like, it's something off with me and stuff like that because they're interconnected. Even though the root chakra is down there and your nose is up here, you know that's the beauty of nature is that everything is connected in one way or another, you
right,
know.
right.
And so
I
yeah, for sure.
for, for me, and I've noticed this all the time. I, my little girl was coming. She was growing. She's always been very sensitive to smells. She can smell things that no one else can smell. And eventually, after she smelled it, and it could be hours later, all of a sudden I would get a hit. It was kind of like, awareness telling me she's, this is what she's smelling. And I would be the one that would kind of track it down, trying to figure it out if I could, right? But she'll be, it's kind of like, was she a hound dog in another life? Because her smell is so acute, you know. And she would say, "Smell that? Do you smell that?" And I would go, "No, I don't smell it." But give it a moment. See, a little. It takes a little while, and then I'll smell it, right? And I'll be the only one that will be able to concur with her that yeah, there is a smell that you smell, and it'll be the house will be closed up as tight as it comes, and it's coming from outside, So, um,
I
I don't.
think that's because you allow yourself to, not I think, it's because you allow yourself to open up to whatever frequency and vibration it is that she's tapping into. So you open your senses and your abilities to stretch into that frequency to be able to smell it too, which is probably why like other people they probably just quick to like, well, I don't smell it. I'm not even gonna try. Like it is what it is, and they just keep on going. But
Right,
you're like, well, let me give it time. If it comes to me, it comes to me. You don't force it, but because you're open to receiving the message, also you then also in tune get the message when it comes to you. Hmm
right. So, when I'm gonna shift something, but I'm gonna bring it back to I think it might be part of the pyramid, right? Is sometimes when for me, like I said, when I was growing up, a lot of the things that I was doing that you you have like spiritual title to, or a definition of. Um, some of the things that are down to us when we're born, based on how other people have raised us, or how they're not doing it because they hate us and they want us to learn it all the wrong way, but they're just feeding us the information. And then if you don't access that information until you get older, does the information that you've held onto that is not has not made surface so that you can make a change in it, will it make a dent in the paradigm shift as you're awakening on its own?
Okay, so I'm gonna need you to repeat that one more time, just because it was breaking in and out as you was trying to formulate the question. So if you could say that one more time,
Okay.
the question.
So all the information that we've been downloaded as children and adults, right? From whether from parents or school or teachers or what, they're latent in, and maybe they're not just absolutely blatantly part of our life.
Right.
Okay, when we're doing paradigm or where paradigm shift, they can happen on their own without that's the on their own based on the information that we have within us. You know,
You're asking if they can happen on their own, the
yeah,
paradigm shift?
based
Oh yeah, absolutely. That happens quite often. There's a lot of people right now that they're experiencing paradigm shifts and they're not fully aware of what it is until they start catching up with themselves and they're like, "Oh, wait a minute, like, this has, for example, part of the collective, because we have our personal paradigm shifts and then there's a collective paradigm shift.
right,
And so, it depends on at to what level, but on a collective level, one of the biggest paradigm shifts that we experienced was the pandemic,
yeah,
and for a lot of people, it may seem as if they were living their day-to-day reality like nothing changed. However, a lot changed. They experienced a pandemic that created a paradigm shift within themselves, that even if they're not conscious of it right now, there are certain things that may trigger them to do things subconsciously that they weren't triggered to do before due to the pandemic, if that makes sense, right? For example, they may act like, oh, maybe they wasn't scared or whatever, this, that, and the third, and they never used to really wear masks. But one of their biggest habits that they started to incorporate in their daily lives is putting on the mask. They feel like everything is the same, everything went back to normal and everything like that, but they participated subconsciously in a paradigm shift. That's not something that they used to practice all the time, but it changed them, and it may not be quite visible or frank to them in the moment. But eventually with time, they'll start to gain recollections of the shifts and changes that they did. Sometimes it takes people, that's more conscious. They can see it right away. Some people, it takes a little bit more time. And some people, it's not until they're in their deathbed and they start like really contemplating their whole life and things, right? Sometimes another thing that creates paradigm shifts is like near-death experiences, right? Where, maybe a person, they were living their lives a certain way every day, going to their 9 to 5, and they're trying to drive home one day and they get into an accident, and this accident just shifts their whole reality, and they instantly don't they may not take the same route home after work anymore. They may take the longer route, or if they're taking the same route, maybe they change their speed of driving, or they change their ways of driving, or they just, even if it's not something physical, the way mentally or emotionally it's moving through them has created a paradigm shift within their energetic bodies, within the mental body, the emotional body. So paradigm shifts are not just physical shifts, right?
okay,
Both embody that. So my answer would be, yeah, like a person can go through a paradigm shift, like a baby, for example, a baby goes from crawling to walking, and that's a paradigm shift,
Right. Yeah.
you know.
I
Even when we're intimate with a partner, I'm gonna give that as an example, right? You may feel like your relationship on a physical level is one way, and this is whether it's a new relationship, especially a new relationship. You can see that paradigm shift, right? You went from single to dating, or single to a relationship. That's a paradigm shift.
right.
But let's just say, even for, in the moment of that sexual energy exchange, right? In that moment, you now created a paradigm shift within your energetic body, within your soul, because you now went from your soul energy signature as it was, to integrating with another soul's energetic signature and creating something new between the two of you. It's a marriage, that a sacred marriage, and connecting the Holy Spirit into one. So it creates a new paradigm shift within both souls,
Right.
to
Okay.
have that new energetic signature, and that's a paradigm shift. And in the moment, they're not like in the middle of doing it and like, oh, we're doing a paradigm shift. Like, I mean, there are times, part of tantra, like, I'm like, hey, you can utilize this energy to create, the reality that you would like to, so you can go into having sex in a conscious way, and utilize it in that way to co-create, these paradigm shifts, absolutely consciously, absolutely. But if it's subconsciously, it's still going to happen.
It's still going to happen. Okay. So
Mhm.
then, like, I have two examples. Okay. The first one, I don't think you'll laugh. The second one, you might laugh, but the second one, I'm going to tell it. I want everybody to have a cheeky smile on their face. The first one is when you said certain things happen to individuals that create paradigm shifts. The first time I used to take my kids everywhere. I used to balance life really great as a single mom and everything, and my kids always had to be at different places at the same time, and managed really well. One time I was on the freeway driving, and I got dizzy while I was driving. My kids are not they hadn't become of any type of driving age, so they were at the mercy of however I was driving, however, that kind of thing. And all of a sudden I got dizzy. My eyesight was like a double. And then on top of that, I panicked, right? And I think now I understand it, because I created a quantum shift, because I was still driving, but then all of a sudden I felt, this is literally, I felt everything go in slow motion. I remember turning to my kids and saying, Mommy isn't feeling good. Look, look and tell me if when the cars slow down on the right side, so that I can start pulling over. Because I literally had to move my car based on what they were telling me. But everything was slow motion. Everything. It felt like, it got to that part where literally I hear them saying, okay, now, Mommy, get over now. Get over. But I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see anything in front of me. I couldn't see anything on the side. Everything, I felt like I rolling around. And I believe that was the first shift of me going. And literally, I don't drive the freeway any more than like 20 minutes on and off, maybe right now, because and that's something I'm working through. And if I need to get anywhere, I just go by streets. If it takes an hour to get me someplace, I kind of work through that. But that paradigm, that particular one, was wondering, why did everything feel like slow motion? Why did everything feel like, I couldn't see any cars. I couldn't see any, but I could feel the motion of the wheel in my hand. I could feel the of, me as the car was moving over, and then, stopping, and my kids, hey, Mommy, we made it, right? That kind of thing. You know what I mean? Was that
Mhm. Mhm.
was that what?
That was definitely quantum, because the way that your cells were impacted, your visuals and everything like that. Now, what I would say is it could be quantum healing, which is, the quantum it's quantum. It's so vast, right? So quantum leaping is a leap. There's also quantum healing when we do that, and it does massive healing on a quantum level through all multiple dimensions and timelines. um after that experience, when you pulled over, and you got your sight back, and whatnot, was there like a major drastic change in your lifestyle, or
Yeah,
was it just you noticed like during maybe like when you're getting ascensions, right? Because that's also, we go through a lot of quantum activations if we're having like ascension symptoms. Our cells, our body, our energies are ascending, and so ascension is a death rebirth type of process, and so that is a quantum experience that can cause that type of and I do agree that it was quantum for sure. I guess what type of quantum experience it was varies on the information that followed thereafter.
yeah. Um, Somebody asked, Kizzy asked,
Have you ever experienced silent migraines? I used to get really bad migraines when I was young. Like I nothing helped it. What shifted that was me when I started getting into meditation and changing like my eating, changing my like just all of that. Now I kind of, can eat whatever I want to eat, and it doesn't affect me in that same way because I've already mentally, worked through some stuff with myself. But no, the headaches sometimes it can be, maybe need, iron or copper, needing more magnesium. It can be different things. It could be certain minerals or vitamin deficiencies that's causing it on a physical level, right? Because we can't take away the body part, right? It's mind, body, spirit is all integrated with one.
right,
So it can be a very physical um reason behind it that is causing spiritual phenomenon, because spirit is in everything, right? But we also can't take away from the fact that that it could be, an effect due to deficiency, right? Another thing could be, that maybe it's not a deficiency. You're completely healthy and you're just not allowing yourself to tap into some of your clears, some of your spiritual abilities, and your crown chakra is nagging you, buzzing you like, wake up, I need you to pay attention to me. You have this ability. I'm trying to tell you how to use it, how to work it, and you're ignoring it, creating pressure in the brain because it's not separate from you. So it's something that is naturally you, and it's not gonna go away until you actually move the energy through.
right. And back then, I did not, I just, all I knew was, whatever the doctor said, basically, oh, you're having a panic attack and you're having anxiety and maybe you're doing too much, like literally, like trying to get the kids two different places in two different directions for the same time. And I had a doctor who was okay. The doctor just said, maybe you're pushing your body, letting you know that you're pushing yourself to an extreme that it can't handle. But at the same time, the fact that you're saying that there is an area of spirit and mind trying to connect together in something quantum, that I kind of kind of kind of what makes sense, right? Which is what the doctor says to. Doctor says you got to, if you don't want to take medicine, you've got to go to a psychiatrist and they'll help you, right? I didn't want to take, I didn't want to be any drugs that keep me from doing what I need to do for myself and my kids, and have a healthy body. You know, so so who knows? Could have totally. No, I know totally. You know, where most people think that the doctors and psychiatrists and whatnot tell you that you're crazy and you're bonkers. It's just you awakening, or your abilities awakening, and it being mistaken from, or okay, you're not normal, you know.
And I just want to put out there that I am not a medical practitioner. I am a medicine woman, right? And so for legalities, I'm not giving you any medical advice. That's between you and your primary care doctor. But as far as you asking me a question and me being able to give you from my level of experience and what it is that I practice, this is my opinion for educational purposes, and it is up to you to do your research and take what I say with a grain of salt, so that way if it resonates with you, you can look into it more. If it works for you, cool, and if not, then that's between you and your doctor. But I hold no liabilities over your life. I put that there because as a medicine woman, my practice is different, right? A medical practitioner, they are practicing the medical field, right? I'm a medicine woman where I practice medicine in the way where it's not medicine of big pharma. Mine's is the nature's medicine,
Yeah.
right? And so that's the difference that I just want to put out there, just
And
to make
that,
sure that it's clarified, because I have to say, I know people laugh about these things, but some people have, not to say that y'all here, but there are people that may see the title of this and old dogmas, and they're still carrying old dogmas, and then they say this and they might be named Karen or something and act a certain way, and it's like, like you don't, and I'm using that as an example for the Karen that's on the internet that they play with, right?
right.
I ain't the one. You gotta go find the one over there somewhere, but the one that I am is multidimensional. I am many.
Right.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I
And this is
act accordingly.
my disclaimer is, anytime that you are shifting from medicine that you've been taking half your life, you do need to keep your doctor in what you're doing. You have the free will right to take yourself off of medicine, but you have to do it the right way. We are not pharmaceutical. We are not first big pharma. We are not your physician. We have not spent 8 years or 9 years getting a degree, right? So therefore, if you are under a doctor's care, not step out of your doctor's care and try to do it on your own without knowing what you're doing. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
It literally, I I will tell you that I did not have proper health care, and before all of this stuff happened, literally 2 years before COVID, I had started to have problems with health benefits and whatnot. And I had told my doctor, I want to be off of all these meds. I want to do it more healthy. I want to eat better. I want to find more holistic medicines that I don't have, so that when I come off medicine, I'm just free and clear of that, and my body can heal from all the side effects that the medicines have given me. And I want right. Well, we didn't get to it. COVID happened. Uh, uh, Health benefits ran out for a little bit. I literally had this. I don't tell anybody else to do this. But I had to take all those medicine bottles out my mouth, sit them in front of my computer, and what the equivalent of holistic medicine is for the heart murmur, and then also start changing how I talking to my body about things that were going on. So I was doing a, you know, but I can't tell you that it's going to work with you.
Mm-hmm.
Or I can say you
And
can.
that's the main important part, where it's like looking at the medicine and seeing, okay, well, why is this? Parts of it work, right? And why? So what are the ingredients of it? And what of those ingredients are natural, right? What of those ingredients can I start implementing into my diet, right? Because even that was the same thing with me. I was under so many different medications, and I told them, I said, I don't want to be on medications no more. Like, and it had been years, and but I had to start eating the foods that was gonna regulate, my hormones. And I'm not even gonna lie to you, I haven't experienced anxiety in a while. And yesterday I was feeling some heavy anxiety, and I had to sit with myself and say, okay, well, what is this? Well, I had to look at what I have been eating. I'm gonna keep it funky with y'all. I was eating a lot of junk food too, and I was like, okay, well, I'm eating junk food. I'm eating this, and I'm feeling this occurred in my life, and this and that. So, when you really start analyzing what is the holistic, it's not just the food of organic food, well, holistically, on a whole level, mentally, emotionally, physically, what is it that you are consuming? What are you watching? What are you listening to? And all these things become programs in our body that create these symptoms, right? So everything has side effects. Even people think that, oh, I remember somebody got burned from an essential oil, and they didn't think they can get burned. I said, well, what makes you think that you can't get, just because it's natural doesn't mean that you can't get a chemical reaction out of it. Like, I mean, you're mixing different compounds and elements together, so it's still very possible to get a chemical reaction out of these things. And this is how they ended up creating these things. They just started adding other things to it as well. That's not my business. I'm not going to keep going on into that. But, that's where my paradigm shift started going, when I started, I started shifting myself, forgetting certain things. And even though in my case, it took for me I did a spell, right, that led to this paradigm shift, in which, I forgot myself, I forgot some memories, and I started going another route in my life to like regain myself, to relearn myself. Y'all don't have to go through the same experiences. Y'all can just choose to say, you know what? I want to make a change in my life, and I'm going to choose to do this now. I'm going to create this paradigm shift now. Maybe it's as simple as saying, well, you know what? Let's say somebody wants to see what it's like to not eat meat. Well, you know what? Let me start with at least 7 days or a month of no meat, and just see what that does, right? You don't need to do a spell for that. You are the spell.
Right,
Right?
right.
Just make the decision, make the choice. And the choice and the decision is a different thing. So make the choice, and then after you make the choice, then make a decision if you want to go more days without eating meat, right? And stuff like that. But and that in itself is giving you a new experience. Any new experience is going to create a paradigm shift. Any new experience is creating a new paradigm shift in your reality. Doesn't have to be something massive.
Okay, so here's uh,
Just a second.
here's the thing that might put a smile on your face. Or they might just go, okay, time for me to leave. Don't know. So what I want to ask is, okay, I want to ask if this would be a lucid dream or a quantum leap and or a paradigm shift momentarily. So I tell you, I do meditational baths, like them in the morning. And this morning, no, I'll have to say this is the second time where I've gone into just gone kind of deep. And this time I was with one in the bath, right? I've been believing for. I know I have a lover. She's there. I'm finally in the actual allowing frequency where both manifestation and my allowing of it is there, where I'm focused enough. So this is the second time that there in the back, there, someone else there with me, right? And anything can happen in a bathtub, right? So when I came out of it, it was like the presence of it. It took me a long time to try to figure out where I was when I came back, and why I wasn't where I was with the person that I was. Was that lucid dreaming inside of a meditation, or was that a quantum leap that I came back into that, into this into this what is it, dimension that which one? Did you hear all of it?
I would say that's more quantum, because you were having a meditative experience consciously with this space, and it wasn't until you came back you was like, wait a minute, like having to readjust yourself because you was just in another dimension. Anytime we're going from one dimension to another, or one timeline to another, that's also like a quantum leap in a sense. And to be fair, like I said, like for me, all quantum experiences, like even paradigm has quantums, right? But not all paradigm experiences are like quantum leapings. There's different levels to quantum. For example, like paganism is any religion that is non-Abrahamic, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be Wicca, or that it has to be Ifa, or it's just any religion that's not that. It's a big umbrella, right? But we can say under that umbrella there's still religion, and both of them, whether it's non-Abrahamic or it's Abrahamic religions, it's still under the umbrella of religion. So
Right.
they're seemingly different, right? They have different practices and beliefs in it, but it's under the same umbrella. So quantum is that umbrella, right? And then there's a different, when you're traveling different dimensions, that's still under the quantum umbrella, right? For me, like I mentioned, the paradigm, it can happen slowly, it can happen subconsciously, it can happen, it's just anytime that, and that's why I said anytime you experience something new, that is a quantum experience. You are having a paradigm shift. So that in itself, you had to recalibrate yourself. You're like, wait a minute, I just, maybe the colors in that dimension was slightly different than the colors in this dimension, and your eyes, the particles and the angles and the numeric codes and everything had to readjust itself. That's quantum.
Yeah. Okay. Because actually it didn't feel it also felt kind of like,
in my opinion, I'm also not a full scholar, so this is just my opinion.
yeah, but you're helping me to understand, because that the second time, this morning that it happened, it was very I could actually feel the vibrations of everything. It wasn't about it being, I was about being in a physical, another quantum realm or dimension, seeing, the physicalities of another bathtub, or the physicalities of the same bathroom, but just something a little bit different. This time, it was more. It was a lot of vibration. It was
Right,
like,
the energetics.
yes, it was about the energetics of everything. It was about seeing everything, seeing everything as it, but shape, right? So for me, it was like when I finally got to the point where it was, I'm back in my bathroom, back seeing things, starting to see things start to physically turn into, oh, that's my lamp, or that's what it was like me saying, where am I? You kind of going, well, this isn't where I'm supposed to be, because where I was at, actually where I felt really good.
You were awake, right?
In the meditating.
And meditating and after the meditation.
After the meditation, yeah, I'm awake both times as I'm.
Yeah. So you already know, like, that wasn't a lucid dream because you wasn't sleeping, right? Like, lucid dreaming is when you're awake in the dream state. Like, you're managing the dream state as if it's the waking state, but you're in that realm and that dimension, right? But you're not sleeping per se. And it's similar because that is a quantum shift in the mind, right? There's the theta quantum, there's the delta, right? There's the alpha state. There's these different states in our mind, right? These different frequency, and anytime we're tapping it either in between or jumping through these frequencies, that is quantum. Anytime that we are, like, let's say emotionally, right? You can feel happy, and then you go from happy to sad. You created a quantum shift within yourself to shift. It's macro and it's micro, but there again, it's different. That doesn't mean that you did a quantum leap as far as timeline, but you did a quantum leap within your emotional body, right? You went from one space of your internal being to another space of your internal being, and that can create, little ripple effects, to, like you said, like you had to recalibrate yourself. Sometimes it's as simple as, we may not question where we're at, but we could come out of meditation and our legs are asleep, and we have to, like, try to, get the sensation in our feet activated again, and the blood circulating. That's a form of quantum energy movement as well, in my opinion, right? Because it's micro, right? And it's those micro subtle shifts in us that is allowing for us to move and whether it's through our breath, right? The breath is spirit,
Right.
espíritu
Right.
is breath. That's where it came from. And so breathing into just, your feet, and just like, ooh, give me a moment. You recognize everything around you, but you're still having a quantum experience, because how deep you went with your spirit, how deep you went with yourself. It was almost like that dimension or that part of your body. It went into a quantum leap of its own, and it's having to catch back with the rest of the body because we're multidimensional beings.
Right. Okay. Okay. And the same way, when we're dealing with old stories in our body, that us doing a certain thing the same old way until something strikes, um, something happens that makes that quantum, or that paradigm
For the paradigm shift.
to
Yes.
change.
Yeah, when we do, whether it's trauma healing, right? So rewriting the narrative to a trauma to work in our favor, or
Uh-huh.
everything goes good and we get impacted by a traumatic experience that may not necessarily feel so comfortable or good. Those are both paradigm experiences, but all paradigm experiences have a quantum experience that is involved in it.
Right. I remember hearing you did a live with a beautiful young lady, Indiana,
Inward. In
Inward,
Indiana, inward.
Inward,
Mhm.
Inward, Indiana. And you guys were talking about how some old stories lead you to believe that I think that one example was having a marriage arrangement that's called open marriage, and being taught that that's wrong, and for a long time that those stories, and is that part of also a paradigm shift where you you change those stories so that they can be allowed in your life? What?
It can be. I think that's something for everyone. Like as you heard in that live, like her experiences were slightly different from my experiences, and so for me, it wasn't that it was a personal paradigm shift for me because I had always been that way. I've always, I mean, and astrologically, you can see that, right? My Venus is in Aquarius. So Venus and Aquarius, we like untraditional, unorthodox, like, we like different. We foresee the future. We look at the soul. We don't always look at the physical. I mean, it's just it's so much in that. Um, but I can say that for my siblings and my parents, I definitely created a paradigm shift in their reality because I was breaking through dogmas with them, right? They had certain ways of thinking, whether it was that they wanted to think that way or they were programmed to think that way because of how they were taught, right?
Right.
Which is why I had brought up like my mother, like my mother had a friend and he was gay and she was all happy go lucky with him and everything like that. But when it came down to her children, she started like, she wanted to accept us, but didn't quite know how to. She fought with it, and it was creating a paradigm shift in our timeline. My mom's timeline it shifted. It was no longer going back to the same. I mean, she knew me as her little girl. She knew her, my older sister says, these are her babies, these are her daughters. And in her mind, she probably thought, they'll probably always be with boys.
You're right.
Here we go, like, showing her, well, hey ma, we like girls too, and that broke a stigma in her mind that was keeping her captivated into one space in her reality that now broke these barriers that of illusion that was created in her mind into a paradigm that, wait, maybe there are certain things that are possible for me to accept, right? For me to be okay. Either way, she may not have approved of it. Like in Indiana's story, in Indiana's story, they didn't quite approve of her decisions, right? And so she even though they didn't approve of her decisions, it was still a paradigm shift for them because they gained the awareness. So I feel like anytime you stop denying yourself of the truth and you accept the truth for what it is, whether you agree with it or not, whether you approve of it or not, but simply the act of accepting it as the truth for being exactly what it is, you create a paradigm shift because you are no longer feeding a lie. You now had to shift your level of consciousness into a reality. You go from fantasy to reality, from delusional to factual, right? It's a leap. It's a paradigm shift. So I would say that yes, in a way. But again, depending on, for me, that wasn't a paradigm shift. What was the paradigm shift was the experiences I had with other people to help create that ripple effect in them so that they can start to see this as a reality because it was already my reality. I didn't have to accept I already accepted myself. I already knew myself in that way. I didn't, so for them, yes. So
Okay.
that depends. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, and literally part of the I'm laughing because part of my ongoing meditation is I always ask to see those things that are unseen by my physical eye that help me move, that help me to serve others and to serve myself, my growth and my wisdom and my understanding of who I am, who I am and where I'm going, and also who I've been, observing myself without judging. And what was brought to my awareness was I went from me, 60 something, to back in junior high school with my first encounter with a girl in school, in the bathroom, realizing that, ooh, this is fun, right? Okay. I did not remember that moment. I haven't, you know what I mean? It was like, it was a one and done. And I didn't think any more about it, except that it was fun. It was nice. It was cool. And then the little girl, you know, was gone. You know, we were graduating or whatever. And when I kind of went back, I don't know if it was a quantum leap. I don't know. It was something, maybe I was having a dream. Maybe I fell asleep, you know, and it wasn't my morning. So maybe I was just having a day, but whatever, it was like when I came back to being me, I go, oh, and that's the first shift that started my life into being this kind of like, who am I and who am I really? And, you know, of course, when I was growing up, it was 60s. So gay was not a thing. You know, it was more, you know, hidden in the closet. Oh, if you are a girl, you need to go get hands laid on you, or you need to devil exorcism, or you need to go lie on a couch and talk to a psychiatrist to bring you back to the norm, right? So those were the little hidden things that were, you know, that were, if it was quantum shift, it was it was managed very quickly by my brain, you know, to make sense of that. But now, as like I said, when I came in I think my mid 40s, late 40s maybe, and you know, that whole kind of thing. But actually, my soul actually took me back to a point where the shift had started, and I go, oh, I understand, you know, that kind of thing. So would that have been a quantum leap back to then? Because I literally felt like I was this little girl, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's like a form of like past life regression. And even though I'm saying past life regression, you know, sometimes people think of past lives like just a life outside of this life, but past life is anything that's in the past, right? So that was a past life of yours. That was when you was in high school, you know,
Oh,
so you were recalling.
that wasn't even high school, baby.
Oh, middle school, was it? Oh.
Uh-uh.
I've had experiences in a really really young space
And
too, and I have to do some healing work with that. But anyway, it happened in this reality, in this life.
mm-hmm. I
That's a question.
yeah. It was.
Okay.
I
So
don't know.
that was a recollection of you, like that was a past memory. It was a memory recall. You was recalling a memory from your past.
Yeah.
You was getting some regression from your past, right?
Right.
And so that's what I mean by past life, right? Like, so even, you know, past life could even be something from yesterday, you know. Obviously, like some spiritualists will try to fight me on it, but that the facts is the facts, is the past is over and is done with, right? Like it happened already. So yeah, that in itself, like I mentioned, anytime we're doing any like mental shifts, that's quantum. You know, to what degree can quantum can go very, it depends on how deep you know we're talking about. Doing like a full thorough past life regression from another past life that was not in this life of 60 something years, that also is a form of quantum leaping. You know
Oh,
what I'm saying? So yeah, recalling that memory is quantum. Absolutely.
right. Okay. Because I won't say it came out of nowhere. Who knows? Maybe my soul felt me, you know, that vibration of relationship being, you know, being not, but you know, like ready. I'm ready, you know, and
There's probably some stuff in there for you to, I know for me, when stuff like that happen, when I get, like, for example, even before we, got on here live, like, I started getting a whole bunch of, like, memory, recollections of memories and stuff and whatnot. And I was like, wow, I haven't even thought of these things or whatever. And I really felt like it was, for me to do some inner work with myself to create a shift, a paradigm shift within my being, um, for me to move forward in the way that I would like to move forward, the way that I created this timeline to be, and sustain it, and so those memories they were fun, they lasted, it was what it was. But I don't necessarily have to carry that over in the way. It's not to say I want to completely forget it, because I'm not trying to suppress my memory either or anything, but I don't have to, some memories, it's exactly that. It's just a memory for information. Maybe it's we were feeling something and it's giving us the information of what it reminds us of, or it could be information based, it can be different things, it can be to give you a warning, it could be to show you maybe there's something in that experience, like you said, like, maybe there was something that you felt entertaining with that, or maybe there was something that you haven't allowed yourself to experience in a long time and you've really been wanting to experience, so that memory comes up. It's so many different reasonings behind why we get um the memories that we get, and all of it is informational based. I feel like all of it is informational based. Yes, we're gonna feel, you may or may not feel emotional from it, it may or may not be a trigger, and it may or may not be for your healing per se, but it's always informative. It's information of what is crystallized in your body or becoming crystalline in your waters, in your body, for you to move forward in the ways that you would like to.
right. Well, all I know is, the information that went through as you were talking to me is that a couple days ago I pulled a card that said, "Allow your inner, allow your inner child to play." So I've been doing that, and I think that's part of that my soul took, allowed me to quantum leap back to as that child, because it was the first time that I was ever really uh, felt free doing something that was kind of, yeah, hush hush, don't do that kind of thing, and not and avoid it, right? As a
And
little,
so do you feel, sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No, you can finish. You're probably
Uh,
going to answer me anyway.
well, I lost it, so ask the question. I
Sorry. I was gonna say, and well, do you feel like a part of your inner child wants to experience parts of, like, more innocence and childlike experiences that maybe it didn't get to feel? Like, for example, like, I know sometimes for me, I do get mischievous thought, like, memories of my child. I'll say mischievous because it is like you said, like, they were like, hush hush, we don't talk about these things to other people. We know we're not supposed to do it, but it was so much fun, and this, that, and the third, right? And so that's a little bit like mischievous, but in me getting those memories, I realized there were certain parts of my childhood that I didn't get to experience, that I wanted to experience, but I felt like in that timeline, in that space, I didn't get to experience it due to my environment and also the thought forms that I had based on the programming that was around me, and the experiences that I had as well. So, I mean, it was that a thought process of yours,
I think,
um,
yeah, I
like,
think,
is there something that your inner child wants to experience that it didn't get to experience?
well, I think that whole kind of, because I experienced that on the tail end of getting ready to go to junior school, and and high school, and being able to it was still, dated. It was, it was about boys. It was about, being great, growing, know, little girls being raised with baby dolls and Barbie and Ken, being told that, once you get to, high school, or finish high school, it wasn't, the thing. I think I was already indoctrinated with falling in love with my high school sweetheart, which was a boy. And then, uh, my high school sweetheart, he'll be the man of the house. He'll have 2 point, what is it, half children, however that really is supposed to, work out. 2.5 point, I guess two toddlers and a baby in the stomach. I guess that, you know. So that's the way I grew up. Not to say it was the correct way. Not to even say it was the way my mother wanted me to grow up. Mother wanted me to finish. Not. I graduated high school early, and she wanted me to finish college. She wanted my 4 years of college. She wanted me to go and get a job. Back then, it was get a job. It wasn't really have a career, that thing. And for me, the play was that play that happened back in elementary school didn't ever get to transpire into anything else to be a choice. Do you know what I mean? Until people started paving the way. You know, you know, you went through the 70s, 80s, and 90s, where the openly gay was better, and that whole kind of thing. But still, for me to come out at late 40s, you know what I mean? Kind of
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
the reason why I'm getting the impression, and my soul is giving me, this is the reason why it wasn't a recall, like observing. It was a recall that I was in that little girl's body, spiritually
Hmm.
experienced, right? Wasn't
Because the
like,
mind doesn't know the difference. Hmm.
right. It wasn't that I could change that point in time to make, maybe I could have, to make it parallel, a different timeline, or whatnot.
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
girl in that, alternate timeline, so that she could have a different experience based on what me possibility. But I got to feel like, oh, this is what fun is, and this is what my soul came to do, was to have fun. And it started off on a good point, but basically, because the collective story had already been written, it was kind of, the individual story being written, kind of at that point outweighed it. Do you know what I mean? Because as a kid,
Hmm.
oh, you know,
And do
I,
you feel like part of breaking the dogma is taking the pen in your own hands?
yes, and just just writing it the way I want. See, the pen in my hand is writing it is, I like sex. I like the, yeah, right. I like the feeling of it. I like the having the attitude. I now I understand why I have always been this kid that, don't try to put a ton of clothes on me, right? I can want to walk around in not in a G-string or anything, but you know, where my shoulders are showing, where my midriff is showing, where, you know, if I've got to wear, got splits down the middle where my legs can feel the air and feel the sun, and also what I'm wearing is fucking sexy,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
first I would, you know, it's kind of, you know, you got to get past all those doctors that say, well, you're 60, you can't dress like that. Well, who the fuck says so?
Mm-hmm.
It need to really actually go back and be that kid and go again and go, I can be anyone that makes me go, ooh, I like it. You
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know, that kind of thing. So
Yeah, we're gonna have to like do a little fashionista, divine feminine kind of showcase going on here, to show different sides, and you know, people think that it's supposed to look just one way, and it's at all ages. I mean, you're still breathing, you're still alive, you're still here to experience. You know, your time is not over. Like, listen, I want to, like somebody was saying, oh, I when I was doing a reading, you know, it was coming out in the reading, and she was like, my mom's gonna be 77. I was like, girl, I still want to be getting it off at 77. You know, I still want to have that experience, and you know, like, and I'm gonna manifest a partner that, you know, we're gonna be compatible with each other, where we are loving each other passionately on all different dimensions with each other, but still be able to please the physicality as well, with that, with the pleasurement of it, because part of this experience is for pleasure as well. And I think that that in itself, you know, even not just in a religious space, but you know, in the spiritual space, you know, there's people that they look at sexual energy. It's always I look at sexual energy as a sacred energy exchange, absolutely. um and there's going to be people that will say, well, because of how sacred it is, um you know, you don't practice having any sex. And then there's, you know, where they abstain, right? They practice abstinence, until they meet a certain partner. And then there's some that practice celibacy, and then there's those that just consciously energetically exchange with others, you know, to I like, you know, my tantric style is in the active space, where consciously moving that energy. It's not just physical, because tantra is not just like sex per se in the physicality, but it's you know, sex in the mind. It's you know, the integration of the sun kissing the water, like I said, like that, me hearing that, me saying that as a child, and how that impacted me. Every time I'm doing like certain breathing techniques, or I get certain dreams, or I have certain experiences, I laugh and I'm like, wow, sun kissed the water.
right,
That was such a sexual energy exchange tantric experience that was multidimensional, that it was innocent in my childhood. And still, it has its innocence, but it also has its pleasure. It has its moments where I'm just like, even talking about it, saying it makes my mouth get saliva, you know, it gets watery,
right.
you know.
It's
And we're alive. So girl, do it, because you're not ugly, you're beautiful inside and out. And as long as you believe, like you say, you felt your partner in the water. And you know, I'm a firm believer that it happens in the spiritual first. And so you know, allow, and then also not feeling guilty and shameful, like if you have certain sexual thoughts, that is like, you know, because sometimes we have to be mindful, like, you know, we are very conscious, powerful people, beings. And you know, we may think about something, and we can energetically pull at somebody's energy just from that, and having to, you know, be mindful of that. But
right.
I say, listen, like you're still young, you know, you still got a whole lot of life ahead of you. And whether it's someone says, oh, well, you know, in order to manifest, you know, there's people that be like, oh, you can't just masturbate all day and expect yourself to manifest whatever you want. And then there's people that says, well, why the fuck not?
Right. Or there are just people that say, oh, you can manifest masturbation, either eye blind or you're going to fall off, or you're telling guys that their penis is going to fall off, or or you're not a if that's what you do. You they're all of the and these are all dogmas, and sometimes, you know, yeah, we think that they come from, you know, religion, and yes, most of them, but they come from just other people's perception of what they like and they or what they believe other people should do or should do. And for me, I've just got to the point where I'm going, okay, all the stuff that's stuck in me, I really don't want it anymore. So you know, I, as Source brings it up and does the shadow walking through it, shadow walk me, okay, that doesn't serve you any longer. Let's move it along. You know, it's like, oh, I didn't even know I was still thinking that shit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's like, all right, you know, here I am. Now I'm learning the difference. I mean, till I started walking this, doing my spiritual walk, that there was divine feminine and masculine. I just thought that I thought that I grew up a tomboy. I liked the energy of my brothers. I liked the energy of what they do and how they did it, and you know, that whole kind of thing. And every once in a while, every once in a while I would like putting on a dress and being really feminine. But I felt good in sweatpants and a t-shirt, you know, kind of thing. So, but now I'm beginning to understand. Oh, I've got feminine and, you know, masculine in me, you know, and you know, as I'm talking to more people saying divine feminine, you know, that kind of thing, I'm going, oh, so I've got that in, you know, both. And so do men. Men have masculine and feminine, but they're not taught about that.
Mm-hmm.
They're taught that what the world says that a man should be, and then that's it. You know. So, wow. I'm going to tell you, we could talk all day. I don't know if a podcast is supposed to be 2 hours, but I think we've gone to.
It's okay. I think it's as long as you want it to be. I
I think,
think the traditional, I don't know if it's traditional. I don't know. I would have to ask my sister, but I think it's more like an hour. But I've had some podcasts that I listen to that's about almost 2 hours long. And I love the conversations that they have. So it's as long as you want it to be, love. This is your platform. This is your, you know.
well, yeah, you know, I mean, it's wonderful because I think we just, like I told you, it's like we crossed the gap, we crossed the divide of all the information and all of it being tied back to, you know, I still haven't gotten to, I wanted to ask you about smudging timelines. I've heard you say that, and I've heard somebody else say it, and it's like, I want all of this, you know.
About what? About what about timelines?
I think it was I heard I think it was you, maybe not you, maybe somebody else saying something about smudging the timelines.
Yeah, I do talk about that, but it, you know, like right now I'm smudging and cleansing and clearing, putting
Oh,
the intention.
Okay.
on there to just make sure you're keeping certain energies away from the timeline and what it is that I want to experience in this now moment,
Ah,
and moving forward. But what I will say is if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask the questions now. If not, we're going to get ready to wrap this up. And if it's okay with you, if you feel like there's some stuff that we didn't get into because this is a very big topic of discussion, yes, I will come back. I'm more than open. We just have to like set up a time and a date and do it again, so that way we can, answer the other questions and really get into it because dogma alone is a big topic, and quantum is a big topic, so for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yes. I tell you what, will you like clear the space that we can close the room?
So if we could all just allow ourselves to get in a relaxed state, whether it's laying down or sitting, I want us to just take a few deep breaths together so you can close your eyes. And I'm going to count down from 3 to 1. And then we're going to inhale and exhale through our nose. I will guide you when to exhale. We're going to hold the breath in between each phase. And so 3, 2, 1. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. One more. Inhale. Exhale. Sacúdate, sacúdate, sacúdate. Limpia, 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 limpia. Limpia que todo lo malo energía que se vaya de aquí. I now, through the voice of my authority and the light of my grace, with the spirit of the Most High, keep this timeline in this space in its sacredness and its wholeness, and in the true form of divinity. In this time and space, I call upon our highest and greatest good to be the director and narrator in our lives, to give us good health, good wealth, good fortune, directing us onto the timeline that is both honoring and serving our highest and greatest good. That any and all energies, entities, energetics, situations, and beings that is not serving us any longer be removed from our minds, our body, and our spirits at this time. And as it is being removed, I ask the seraphim, the angels, the archangel Michael, the angels of our lineage of the highest order, to transmute this energy to work in favor and honor of the highest and greatest good. It is my will, and as I will it, it is so. It is done now. I give thanks in advance to our angelic teams as I so faithfully trust in you. I affirm that we will be directed and guided and safely protected in all timelines, realms, and dimensions of our existence. And with that, I leave you in perfect love and perfect trust. So as we marry meet, we marry part. And I thank you. Ashe, Aho, Amen. I'm going to leave it like that. That's just what flowed through me this time. It might be different next time. It might be a little rap song or something, but
Ashe.
thank you.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. Makinate kishi. Don teshi. Chi kola me kishi. Ma atoshia na ante kishina. Ena koshi. Io shotoko. Inakai. E shorotoko.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Ashe.
Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I give gratitude for all those that came through this room, all those that are in this room. Kashina tokuma. Teshi. Be blessed. Be whole. Be
Así tico. Sí. Okay, sí, okay. Ya está. Sí. After. I'm gonna share because now you got me shaking my nose.
Okay. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for joining Soul Conversations with Sandra. Thank you for joining this podcast. Be blessed. Bye bye for now.